What's up, Twitch and YouTube? It's Murphy D55 coming to you with another episode of The Northern. This is episode 21, and back contributing again is my guy, Big Cap. Still rocking Eagles gear. Eagles are still in the dance here. He agreed to come through until the Eagles get eliminated. And we're almost there. We're in the final four teams now, guys. So there's really only one more week of football ahead of us before we get to determine the two teams that are going to be representing the AFC and NFC in the Super Bowl. So, Cap, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come through again for the podcast.
Yeah, man. Hey, look, I don't care what you got going on. You know, life happens, whatever. But like Jalen Hurts says, but I'm going to ad lib it a little bit. Rain, sleet, or snow, Kep is ready to go. All right. You just
Let's
let me
go.
know when, where, how, and I got you.
Hey, I love it, man. And honestly, that's kind of the perfect segue because I wanted to talk a little bit about the divisional round and maybe specifically about the Eagles game because yeah, it was I was watching the game at first when it right when it went live and it looked okay to me. And then as the game went on, I was like after halftime specifically, I looked at the field. I was like, oh man, this is like miserable. Like it was like it looked it looked like freezing rain at points. It looked like driving snow. Like it was brutal. The conditions out there in that game. Do you think that that played into the Eagles like ground and pound kind of style of football? Because typically when the weather gets bad, you know those tough gutted out running first teams thrive. What are your thoughts on the game and how it went down?
Yeah, I was doing a watch party. I had my setup. I brought my TV stand in from the living room. I brought my big TV in from the living room. I set it up on the other side of the my office so nobody could see
Yeah.
the TV. But I had my son in here with me. Aka and my dogs are waiting for food to drop on the floor or give them chicken bones from the chicken wings and stuff. But I was doing a watch party because people wanted to watch me watch the Eagles, and
Yeah.
you know it. If you know me, that's a treat to watch me live watch the Eagles. I think back in what was it in 2017 when I watched the Super Bowl and
Yeah.
streamed me watching the Super Bowl, I had like 3,000 people watching me watch the Super Bowl.
That's
But
crazy.
but that was nuts. But you know, obviously this game was a little bit different, and I knew going into it, like we needed to jump out to a lead because of I knew how bad it was going to be in the second half. Like they
Yeah.
said, like once the sun went down and it got colder, that snow came, and that snow came quick. Now
Yeah.
it wasn't quite the snowball from what I think that was what year 2013. I think that was
Was that one of the years that
the
the Giants?
Lions and the Eagles.
Yeah.
There was like 2 foot of snow on the ground on the field, and
Yeah.
LaShawn McCoy ran for 200 plus and 2 feet of snow, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But I knew that we needed to jump out to a lead, and I mean, thank goodness we did and held the lead. And Saquon ended up breaking off a 72-yard run in the
I
snow
saw
anyway.
that one. Yeah.
But it was still my butthole was puckered. Uh, once Jalen hurt, once Jalen got hurt and got twisted up, and his knee got twisted up, and they put a brace on his knee, I was like, well, there goes the RPO or the surprise of him holding the ball and pulling out the backside because he started that game off with a 44-yard touchdown run, and he
Yeah.
looked like a man on a mission to start the game. Um, but I'm just glad they kept the lead. The defense, you know, nutted up so to speak, and was able to get after Stafford when they had to. And you know, I was your emotions during a football game, especially me. You know, and everybody's emotions during a football game
Yeah.
is the highs and lows. And boy, I didn't know if I was gonna cry, if I was wanted to cheer. Like I was on the edge of my seat. And thank goodness we pulled out the win. And
Yeah.
it was a good game. Like the Rams were hot. The Rams were hot. People, analysts had every right to pick the Rams because of how hot they were. But
Yeah.
I knew just being at home, the elements, us being able to run the ball, like they can't stop the run. I mean, Saquon, I think scrimmage yards in 2 games against them is almost 1,000 yards in two
That's
games.
insane. That's
It's like
that's
close to
insane.
800 yards in 2 games against
Yeah.
the Rams.
No, he split like the Red Sea. Like honestly, that one massive run that he had, and he was like slapping his helmet and stuff too. Like it was like some cool moments. I was just like, man, if I was an Eagles fan right now, I'd be going insane. It's like basketball has a lot of those signature moments where it's like it could just be a well placed like fist, like fist pump or something. But like that thing when Saquon was running there, slapping his helmet and getting everybody fired up was nuts. You know,
The one thing that I get sick of is all the hate on Jalen Hurts, man. I get sick of it. You
yeah,
know, we know us real fans, us guys that know football, we know he's not Dan Marino. We know he's not Tom Brady. We know he's not Josh Allen or Lamar, or even Lamar, right?
yeah,
He's making good decisions with the football. He's being efficient, whether he's throwing for 120 yards or 250 yards. He's being efficient with the football. You can
Yeah.
always count on him to have a rushing touchdown, whether it's a tush push or a break off a big run for a touchdown like he did to start the game.
Yeah.
With that said, I'm getting tired of you putting up these thumbnails and stuff.
I was just thinking of that, and even my
Not
going live
including-
tweet.
Not including my quarterback. All right, I've seen enough of Jaden Daniels today out of you.
You
All
know
right.
what? Honestly, when I've been picking out the thumbnails for this, I'm kind of like keeping in mind the entire playoff journey. So like obviously, when you think of the playoffs, you think Patrick Mahomes, and I'm like, they're probably going to be there in the final week anyways. So I'm kind of trying to take the guys and put them up. Obviously, the first one was a Vikings one, because I was like, okay, Vikings, that's my team, so I got to go for it, and they're probably going to get first rounded, which they did. Now I got Jaden Daniels. I mean, the trend is whoever I put on the thumbnail, they get knocked out that next week because
Okay. All right.
so
All right.
so
All right.
I'm if I put Jalen Hurts on there, I'd essentially be condemning the Eagles' season to end. So
Okay. All right. I
we'll-
like your thought process.
yeah,
I like
we're
that.
saving. I'm gonna
Okay.
try and get a Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, like half their faces. I'll put something together for the Super Bowl rematch that we're all hoping for. And it's kind of seeming more and more like that's what's gonna happen again. Although we will get into the games, but I mean the Bills too, like looking like legit contenders now. Either Kep's got the lady coming over or DoorDash arriving in the next little bit.
No, it's Instacart. My groceries. I had to get dog food and stuff.
Nice. Oh, W. Actually, I gotta get cat food too.
She says the directions say drop off at the front desk. No, it says drop at the door, not the desk.
Who would ever want
Reading-
that
reading
though?
is
Like,
hard.
who would ever want it dropped not at their apartment? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, drop this off here if
Yeah,
there's an
let me go
option.
walk to the leasing office and get my groceries.
Yeah,
So,
facts. Yeah. So there you go, guys.
so-
If you want to find Kep's location, just look for the red doormat, okay? If you you just got now his location is public knowledge. I will strike that from the record in post production here. I don't want to give up anybody's location. There's some weirdos out there on Twitch, Cap, and there's some
Trust me.
weirdos in this chat right now too. I'm sure.
pull up. If you want
yeah.
the smoke, pull up.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I'll let you meet Atka.
Nice. But
Um,
yeah. Talk to me. You were talking about the slander, the Jalen Hurts slander.
Oh yeah, the slander. Obviously, if AJ catches those two balls, Smitty dropped a ball where he probably had it caught until he got until he got hit in the face with the top of a helmet from a dude that launched himself.
No
The
targeting.
screen that was called back from Goddard that took the ball to like the 3-yard line. If you combine all of those, he's easily over 250 yards passing.
Yeah.
With the one ball AJ dropped probably was a touchdown. Either way, it was at the one, so he would have had another tush push touchdown. You're talking about him having 3 rushing touchdowns and 250 plus yards passing because the one tush push was called because Lane Johnson false started. So and that was a touchdown. So I mean, you got to take into all that into consideration, but he's not turning
That's a
the
really
ball
good point.
over. He's efficient, he's making the right reads, the right plays, even if he's holding on to the ball too long. I mean, the safety he took, you could tell he couldn't move. Say he gets that ball out, he tries to throw that ball away, and it's picked, and it's a pick six. Like that's like little things like that. I look at little things like that. I don't need him to be Josh Allen. I don't need him to be Lamar. I don't need to look at Josh Allen. Look at Lamar. Look at the game Lamar had, and he had 2 turnovers that cost his team the game.
Yeah.
You could bitch about Mark Andrews all you want dropping that 2-point conversion, but it doesn't even come down to that if he doesn't throw an interception with a terrible throw and a fumble that led to a fumble 6. So
Well, speaking of
Jalen
which,
Hurts
Mark
isn't
Andrews.
he's not costing us games.
Yeah.
He's not. He doesn't have to. He has the best running back in football. He's the best O-line in football. He's the best couple of the best wide receivers in football. Like he doesn't have to play hero ball. We were my fan base was constantly complaining about him playing hero ball and turning the ball over and losing us games.
Yeah.
So now that he's not doing that, they still like
Well,
and then
you
you have
know-
analysts too. Like it just drives me nuts. Man.
Some of the stuff that I've seen, and I'll get into it in just a second, but there was a time where I had Jalen Hurts probably as one of my top 3 quarterbacks in the lead after their Super Bowl appearance, and I was like, man, he seems like a top 3 guy. He was putting up numbers and having the success as well, and now it's kind of like the Eagles, it doesn't feature him so much. Like their entire game plan is not built solely around him to the point where it's like I don't even know if I rank him in the top 10 necessarily statistically. But I'm like, it doesn't even matter. Like he seems like the perfect fit for the team that you guys have over there, and for what you guys run. And it's almost like, I don't really, Like I think he'd be the first to admit, like he's not putting up MVP caliber stats because that's not what is asked of him in this current role. We've seen guys, some guys even the MVP conversation, like Joe Burrow, like, incredible offensive year, like 44 touchdowns, like 4 interceptions, something insane. But 9-8 record. It's like, that's you got to do what you got to do to win games.
And I don't want to keep giving him excuses. I don't want to keep giving him excuses because I'll be the first one to say, all right, that was stupid or that was a dumb read or this, that, and the third. But I don't want to be the first one to give him excuses. But I was looking at all 22s, and I've been doing a lot of looking and reading and watching film. From other guys watching film, and the play calling is horrendous. You can say
Yeah.
what you want about Kellen Moore. I hope he goes to Dallas, please. Like
Yeah.
his play calling is not that much different than Brian Johnson last year. You've got guys running intermediate routes, all within 5-6 yards of each other. How the hell is a quarterback supposed to make a read when you've got all your weapons in the same area? There's no
Yeah.
short routes, there's no hot routes, there's no hot reads, it's all intermediate stuff with guys with their back turned. And he's not the type of guy to be able to throw a guy open or a timing
Yeah.
play, or that's not how the offense is based. It should be solely based on the RPO. It should
Yeah.
solely be based on the RPO when you have a running game like that. I keep saying if they bring in a guy that it's solely RPO and it's solely quick read, and that's the type of quarterback Jalen Hurts is. And if it's
Yeah.
not there, he can run, he can hand it off. There's multiple things he can do with that RPO offense. The offense would be unstoppable. It would be
Yeah.
unstoppable. But it's all this lazy play action and intermediate routes with wide receivers with their back turned towards him. And if you get pressure, he's not throwing the ball unless he sees a guy open. He's just
Yeah.
not going to. He's just not the type of quarterback. So they need to bring a guy in that will play to his strengths. And there's no telling when the year he had his second offensive coordinator in a row with Shane Steichen. He was an MVP candidate. That's when in
Yeah.
2022 was this the only time in his career he's had an offensive coordinator, the same offensive coordinator 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
He's had a different offensive coordinator darn near his whole life.
Yeah. Well, and then
Like,
that's part of
there's
being
no-
an elite team. It's like really there's only a few teams where every single year you're scrambling to replace your staff, and it looks like the Vikings, because of our first round showing, maybe Flores not catching a job. Like it looks like we might be able to bring back our coordinators again, which is a huge W. But look at like the Lions, who had a great year. Lions are getting picked.
How good it
Yeah.
is, how good that is to your team.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like you're gonna see next year with the Lions. I'm not predicting what's gonna happen with the Lions. I still think they're a good team, and they'll be getting healthier. Hopefully, they can't get much less healthy than they were this year. But yeah, they're losing their offensive and defensive coordinators. We're gonna really see how good of a coach Dan Campbell is, and we will get into talking about Dan Campbell too later on as we kind of get into some of the awards races and who we think might be candidates for those. I think a lot of the awards candidates were actually dropped today on NFL's Twitter, the finalists for it. So we can talk about some of that. But yeah, Eagles did take care of business. I think that was the weather and the home field advantage definitely worked out in their favor. The Commanders was by far. I mean, I was again horrible with my picks last week. Honestly, a lot of stuff happened. I thought the Bills Ravens I thought was a toss up. Commanders I thought were going to get absolutely smoked, and that ended up being the most surprising game of the week for me. Wasn't surprised to see the Chiefs advance. But yeah, this weekend, like there have been a few little surprise stories, and I'm sure being, the Cinderella story, Commanders are getting a whole bunch of media attention right now because nobody saw them winning even a single game, and now they're knocking on the door of getting into the Super Bowl. So I'm sure that's been frustrating as an Eagles fan. I've been seeing, who's the best receiver remaining in the playoffs? Is it AJ Brown or is it Terry McLaurin? I've seen a lot of just comparisons and a lot of glazing going on right now. What's the best rookie season of all time for a rookie QB? Jaden Daniels at the top of the list. It's from a team nobody talked about. It's amazing how much respect they're getting just in the last week for beating a team like the Lions.
You ride what's hot. That's what the media does.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how Jaden Daniels' this year stacks up to what C.J. Stroud did last year in his rookie season.
That's what I'm saying. That was incredible.
Yeah, basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And then look at the year C.J. Stroud had this year. He had a decent year, but nowhere near what he did last year. So, I mean, obviously Jaden Daniels is a good quarterback. I had him over Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Um, not by much, but he's obviously shown. I mean, Caleb Williams is going to be a good quarterback too. He just needs to
Oh, for
get
sure.
Brian Johnson is going to do him a lot of good.
Yeah.
And he's going to do the Bears a whole lot of good. But I I I thought I knew the that Washington. I'm not going to call them the Commanders. I knew Washington
Yeah.
could beat them just because of how hurt how yeah, Ben Johnson, Brian Johnson, whatever.
Yeah.
But I knew they could win because of how hurt Detroit was, especially on defense. And you saw Detroit had nothing
Yeah.
for them defensively, nothing.
Yeah.
But with them being as hurt as they were, they had nothing for them defensively. It was going to be a shootout. I knew it was going to be a shootout. But the way Washington shredded their defense, that's not going to happen Sunday.
Yeah. Absolutely,
That's
man.
not gonna
And
happen. You're facing the number one defense. We're not hurt. We've got
Yeah.
Quinyon Mitchell's a little banged up, but he said he's fine. We're not. We've got our full, other than Brandon Graham, we've got our full arsenal on the defensive side of
Yeah.
the ball in the city of brotherly love in Lincoln Financial Field. Jaden Daniels ain't having that type of game Sunday. I promise
Yeah.
you that.
Which is the beauty of you guys actually being able to rest some of your starters towards the end of the season, whereas, you know, the Lions had to gut it out in week 18 and still play their best football to guarantee that number one seed.
The Lions had 22 guys on IR.
Yeah.
22.
That's insane.
That's on a whole offense and a
Yeah.
whole defense.
I'm sure there's one guy in Vegas with a ticket somewhere who just made a whole bunch of money being like, yeah, I think this could happen, taking the over on 21 and a half injuries or IR appearances. Yeah, it's crazy. And, you know, they were without, you know, Aiden Hutchinson, the face of their defense. Their secondary was shredded. You know, it's still impressive, and we'll get into that when we get into the Coach of the Year talk. You know, being able to withstand them and win a playoff game and make it as far, well, not win a playoff game, but get that first round bye is impressive in its own right. But, you know, the wheels are bound to fall off at some point. It's a physical sport, and you know, health is one of the prerequisites to having success, especially in the postseason when every team is already fatigued and ground down, and the games are just that much tougher because it's a win and get in or a win or go home situation. But, you know, let's get into a little bit talking about the matchups for this coming week. There's only 2 of them, and then we'll get into some talk about the awards races and who we think might be good fits for those. We'll start off. I'm letting you finish off with the Eagles this week. I know I've always stuck them in the middle, but we're gonna go AFC first here. Chiefs versus Bills. So the Chiefs, obviously, I mean, every single year for the last like 4 or 5 years, like whenever a team wins the Super Bowl and people ask me, you know, normally it's like right when Madden comes out, who do you think's gonna be in the Super Bowl this year? When the kids are in your chat, you know, and they just got Madden, it's the first day, who's gonna be in the Super Bowl? And I always say the Chiefs because it's like they've proven that they're in the Super Bowl damn near every year. So no surprise there. What do you think happens in this matchup here? We got Mahomes, who really hasn't been talked about in the MVP candidate race this year, but obviously, like, they're doing everything it takes to win. And then you got Josh Allen, who's been playing kind of like a cyborg, played really well in that cold weather game in the divisional round. Who do you think wins this one, and what do you think the game's going to be like?
Well, Mahomes hasn't had a good year this year. He's made plays, and they've made plays when they've had to. The defense has carried him again. He's got a good defense. They had a great defense last year, and they won the Super Bowl. I don't see it being Buffalo's time yet. I really don't. I don't think they have enough on offense, whether Josh Allen has to play Superman or not. I just think he's going to try and do too much, and there's going to be, you know, you're going into Kansas City. That's a very tough place to play. The weather isn't gonna mean nothing because they play in Buffalo. I mean, they play in cold weather, you know, from basically October on. It's pretty cold up there. So the weather isn't gonna be a factor. I don't know what the weather's gonna be like. If there's gonna be snow, if there's gonna be wind, but either way, it's a tough place to play. I think I thought the Chiefs' voodoo magic would eventually run out, and they wouldn't. I thought Buffalo was gonna be hosting the AFC Championship game. I really did.
Yeah.
So the fact that, you know, the Chiefs got past the Texans rather easily, and then who was it? Who did they beat?
The Texans? Texans beat the Chargers to get there, and then the Chiefs, that was their first game.
Yeah, the Chiefs beat the Texans.
Yeah.
That game was a little closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought they were going to handle the Texans pretty well, but that ended up being a good game. And again, Mahomes just doesn't. They don't have enough on offense. Other than, I mean, Xavier Worthy is okay, but I mean, he's basically just a speed demon. He ain't running routes. He's not a good route runner. You know, he's just basically somebody to stretch the field, and Travis Kelsey, you know,
Yeah, he's
all of a
aging.
sudden decided to show up and have a great game. So,
Yeah.
you know, it takes a lot. It takes a lot for the Chiefs, especially this year. How they won 15 games or 16, however many it was, 16? What, did they win
Yeah.
16 and 1?
I think maybe 15 for the number one seed. I
15
think
and
because
2? I mean, it's
they sat
crazy
their
to
starters the last week, and I think they lost one game. I think they were like 14-1, and they also sat their starters the final week. I'm pretty sure.
have the year that Mahomes has had and them still win that many games.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't score more than 30
It's
points the
pretty
entire
crazy.
year. I don't think they have scored 30 points yet, even including the playoff game. Like they
Yeah,
got
their
28.
offense is
It's
nowhere near like
crazy.
it has been.
Yeah,
So
it's weird. It is a defensive identity for sure right now.
I think Josh Allen is going to have to play Superman and
Yeah.
put it, and he might not have to put up a lot of points because again, Kansas City's not a high powered offense anymore.
Yeah.
So I would not be shocked if the Bills won, but I think it's going to come down to Josh Allen, turning the ball over, once or twice in a bad spot, and the Chiefs voodoo magic, continuing, and they get another shot at the Super Bowl. And I don't hate the Chiefs. I
Yeah.
love Andy Reid. He's one of my
Well,
favorite.
Eagles legend. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So obviously I don't. They're not my team, so I don't want them to win the Super Bowl. But I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind that rematch. And James Bradbury's not on the field, but I don't like looking at the whole ref things, the refs and
I was
this
about to
call
bring
and
that
that
up.
call.
Yeah.
I hate doing that because I played sports and I rarely ever got on a ref or an umpire or anything like that because it's
Yeah.
a hard job. It's hard. You could call a
Yeah.
holding call on every play, damn near.
Yeah.
And it's just a missed call here, a missed call there, a bad call here, a bad call there. Everybody thinks like I've only ever seen a bad call, well, twice now when I saw James Bradbury get called for that holding.
Yeah.
But what was it? The Saints and Rams, I think it was, with the blatant pass interference
Yeah.
that would have put the Saints in the Super Bowl. Um,
Even face masks. There's been a lot of missed face. That was one thing about Darnold. He got face masked a lot, especially early in the season before he had any respect. He was getting his head taken off, but you know what? A face mask is something that's easy to miss in game, especially if you're
yeah,
behind the play. I can totally see it looking like just incidental contact, and then in the replay, we get 14 different angles of it, and we can see it.
and I think
PI is a little
eventually
bit more
we'll get
obvious.
I think eventually they'll get to a spot where those things can be reviewed because those are
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Those
Oh
are
yeah.
huge missed.
That's
Those are
15
huge
yards and a
penalties.
first down. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's
If they can review other stuff that is game changing, they should be able to, but eventually you're going to be like, there's going to be reviews every other play or every 2 or 3 plays. Oh, let's review that. Like
yeah.
it's football is such a hard sport to coach, to officiate, to play. Like
Yeah.
it truly takes a team, an entire team, and everything going the right way. And you can call it luck or whatever, but especially this time of year, man. Especially this time of year, there's going to be things that people are going to get bent out of shape about. But I'll never be the guy to blame refs or calls or
Yeah.
non-calls that will lose. Why were you in that position to begin with? You can look
Yeah.
at the entirety of the game. You can't look at 1 or 2 missed calls or 1 or 2 bad calls. You just can't.
Yeah.
But with that said, the Chiefs do seem to get a lot of help.
Yeah. What do you think
For
about the
whatever
flop?
reason.
The flop is the one because the narrative has been like, and we have some Chiefs fans in the chat right now. But it's the narrative and the memes and with AI now, like the refs wearing the Chiefs jerseys and stuff. I find it hilarious. I think it's funny. I don't perpetuate it. I just think it's something funny to laugh at because Chiefs fans, they have so much good going for them that they can take a little bit of ribbing. I mean,
Josh
you
Allen's
win 2 out
flopper
of the
too
last
now.
3 championships. You can go ahead and take a couple hits on social media, but there was the flop on the sideline, if you can call it that. Kind of looks like an NBA player driving into the basket with the hands thrown up, like where it looks like okay, he's sold it. He's not trying to protect himself. He's trying to draw that flag.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that specific
I don't
play?
like it. I don't like it. He knows it. Josh
Yeah,
Allen's a flopper too now. Don't get it twisted. Josh Allen does his fair share of flopping.
yeah,
They actually did a montage. Somebody did a montage of Josh Allen flopping, and it was like 5 minutes
yeah.
long. It was hilarious.
You got to have
So
respect to be able to
I
flop
think
too, though.
quarterbacks.
Like
I think certain quarterbacks know. I
yeah,
think certain quarterbacks know. Okay, I can get this call. Lamar Jackson ain't going to get that call.
oh,
Jalen Hurts
100%.
ain't going to get that call.
Yeah,
There's other guys that aren't going to get those calls. So they know in the back of their mind, I'm going to get this call. So let me go
yeah.
ahead and try. What's a free 15 yards? Like,
Oh,
that's
for
going to help
sure.
help my team out.
Same thing could be said for wide receivers. You were talking about, the stats that don't show up, like, with Jalen Hurts specifically, but I was thinking the same thing with wide receivers. How many times have I seen Justin Jefferson, get a 45-yard PI call, and it was clearly the guy just holds him because he's so butt naked, wide open, and he gets zero stats for that. Nothing in the fantasy line, nothing that goes towards his season stats, but he just advanced the ball to the 5-yard line, and they're gonna get 7 points now. So it's stuff like that. They are game changing plays, but you're not going to see them on the highlight reel unless it's a missed call. It's stuff that it largely goes unnoticed in history. Like I'm sure there's some crazy website that you can dig up how many penalties and who they were called on, but the average sports nerd is not looking into that kind of stuff. Unless you're a fan of your own team and you can remember it yourself.
I'm gonna go with the Chiefs
Yeah,
winning in a. I don't think it's gonna be a shootout. I don't think it's gonna be a high scoring game. I think it's gonna be like 27-13, well, not 27-13, like
yeah,
27-23, 27-24, something like that.
yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a shootout.
I'm not gonna make a prediction here because my predictions have been useless anyways during this entire podcast series leading up to the Super Bowl. But I will say that I am actively rooting for the Bills. They're obviously a lot of my friends in content, and the team's only an hour and a half down the road, so I'm rooting for the Bills. They've had heartbreaking moments in the playoffs in similar situations against the Chiefs, and I feel like it's kind of a monkey on their back, like. The game where it seemed like they had it won and then they lost it with like 12 seconds left, and they've dealt with too much heartbreak, and the Chiefs are. It's the point where you don't really respect greatness when it's happening. I realize the Chiefs are a dynasty. I have a lot of respect for the coaching staff, for Patrick Mahomes. I sing his praises all the time, but it's the point where I'm actually a little bit annoyed now with how good things have been going for them. That I wouldn't mind seeing, even for the NFL, I wouldn't mind seeing a Patrick Mahomes redemption arc next year. See them get ousted, not make it to the Super Bowl, and then see that team of veterans play hungry again. It's a good storyline. Like somebody in the midst of a dynasty, can they get back there again? I think I'd
It,
love to see the Bills represent the AFC.
the Chiefs have played in 7 straight AFC championship
Yeah,
games.
yeah. It's
That's insane.
it is insane. It's a dynasty. Like anybody who says the Chiefs suck is you just don't know football. Like these guys are so damn good. It's so hard to make it to the playoffs and then to advance that far, that consistently. It's like LeBron in the NBA Finals. Like there was that one stretch where he was just there every year, with the Heat and with the Cavs. It's like every year he's going to be in the conference championship and more than likely he's going to be in the finals. Whether he's winning or losing is a different story. But yeah, it's interesting, and Mahomes is only 29 years old. Will he age well? I think he will. Like quarterbacks play well into their 30s now. Was this year just a one-off lower statistical year, or is he going to have other 50 touchdown seasons again in the future? That's
Yeah,
another
he's
thing I
not.
wonder
He's
about.
not the type of quarterback that has to,
Hmm.
run or maneuver the pocket or anything. I mean, he's a
Yeah,
he's a good pocket quarterback too. But
yeah,
you know, to, you know, I appreciate greatness. I may
yeah,
not
for
root for
sure.
them or cheer for them, but me being a has-been athlete and playing sports my whole life, and I mean, I've loved sports my entire life. I've never gone through a phase or anything. I've been this much into sports my entire life, and I appreciate greatness. Well, I may not. I loved watching Tom Brady and all his
Yeah,
greatness. Patrick Mahomes, LeBron James, Tiger Woods. Like I appreciate great athletes. I don't
yeah,
understand how people hate on great athletes, whether it's your favorite team or not. I
yeah.
love watching good sports and great athletes. I don't care if they're on my team or not.
Yeah, 100%. No, and I absolutely agree with you on that. It's something I totally get being salty. I mean, if you're a Utah Jazz fan and you're going up against Jordan in the finals every couple years and you never win one because of it, of course you can hate Michael Jordan. But if you're just a fan of the game in general, and it's Sunday night and you want to watch a game before you go back into the work week on Monday, would you rather watch the Jaguars versus the Panthers, or would you rather see a potential all-time great going at it on prime time? Like I 100% agree with that. The NFL is different. It's kind of like a team driven league, but it is also a star driven league. There are those players that you just it's can't miss TV whenever you see them go toe to toe. But let's get into the NFC matchup here. It's obviously a shorter portion of the podcast because there's only two games to talk about here. But Eagles versus Commanders. You call them whatever you want to, Kep. I know you're not comfortable with the name Commanders. We'll call them the Washington Football Team. Uh, so this is going to be obviously in Philadelphia too. I'm assuming the weather's probably going to be miserable again. because it's miserable here and we're on the Eastern Seaboard. It's bad. What are your thoughts on this game? How's it going to go down? And were they going to turn back into a pumpkin?
Let me do a quick weather report.
Let's get it. Let's get the extended forecast here.
Sunday. I mean, it's going to be at 3:00 in the afternoon, so it's going to be in the upper 20s, low 30s. No precipitation. It's going to be cloudy. So I mean, it's not going to be crazy weather like it was this past Sunday against the Rams.
No polar vortex.
But and they're going to be recalled. They're going to be named the Redskins eventually. I think there's so much backlash and so much noise of not only like the what is it, some organization that has to do with Black Chief or whatever chief, something, one of the chiefs that they were originally named after. Like that whole group, like they're wanting it back. Like I've
heard some groups of like indigenous people saying that it was a point of pride. I have heard that, and I have heard of like some indigenous like high schools that still use that logo as their logo too. So it's
my high school we were the Raiders, but it was an Indian. It was an Indian chief as our logo. But whatever. It's not gonna matter because they're going to Cancun on Monday. It doesn't matter. They're not. We are opposite of what the NFL is right now. The NFL is heavy pass, run up the scoreboard. That's not how we play football this year. We're an old school. We're playing old school football right now. We're the number one defense in the league. We're running the football. We're keeping other teams off the field by sustaining drives and running the ball with the best running back and the best offensive line in football. The Redskins, Washington, whatever the fuck, they don't have good run defense, and they're not playing Kenny Pickett this time. They're not playing Kenny Pickett this time. You're not going to be able to stack the box and play one-on-one on the outside with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown against Jalen Hurts. You're just not going to. Whether his knee's bummed or not, he was full practice participant today. He's saying his knee's fine. And they could just be playing head games. His knee may be bothering him, but it's not going to matter. You're not putting 8, 9, 10 in the box to stop Barkley and then expect to play one-on-one on the outside with one safety. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be so glad because since they beat Kenny Pickett when Frankie Louvu decided to cheap shot our quarterback and take him out, and there's been a lot of talk about how dirty Frankie Louvu's been this year, not just in that game but other games as well. And apparently their defensive coordinator today said if they're going to run him, we're going to treat him like a running back and we're going to hit him every chance we get. So they're going to need to be careful with running him and hey, crash those ends. That's fine. He'll just pull the ball out and hit AJ or he'll hit Devontae. You go ahead and play Saquon all you want. It's not going to turn out like it did last time when Kenny Pickett was in there. And I'm not saying Kenny Pickett did a great job when he had a week of preparation. Like he's not a terrible quarterback, but he's not Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
You're not worried about anything but him throwing the ball. So, he did an okay job. But I just don't see them coming in with their run defense, and we're still going to run the ball. And hopefully Kellen Moore schemes up some different stuff because the one thing that bodes well for Washington is that it's the third time they're playing us. Yeah. And if Kellen Moore doesn't, have some different formations, doesn't have some things that they haven't seen before, different motions, like he's going to have to be creative. I don't think he's going to be able to run his mundane offense like he's been doing. Because I've been watching, like I said, a lot of film in all 22s with Kellen Moore's play calling. It's not been great. It's not been great at all. He's going to need to open up the playbook a little bit, open up some better route concepts, get A.J. Brown in one-on-one situations, get Devontae Smith in one-on-one situations, and spread the field and let his athletes play to their strengths, not to your offense. Let them play to their strengths and get them in open space. None of these 10, 5, 10, 15 yards, outside the numbers, and they're all within a stone's throw away from each other. You got to get these guys away from each other, open up the offense a little bit, and I just don't see them beating us. I don't see them beating us at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people are going to see that type of play calling and think, is it a Jalen Hurts health issue? Is it, does he not have his legs under him if he's wearing a brace? Does he not have the arm strength to make throws beyond that? Like is it a lack of confidence, you think, of your offensive coordinator not having a belief that Jalen Hurts can do the type of things that you believe he can do from back in the
No, because
2022 season when he was an
we've seen
MVP
he can.
candidate?
We've seen what he can do when he's called upon to throw the ball.
Yeah,
When there have been game plans, when there have been game plans to stop the run or stop the short and intermediate stuff, he's shown that he can do it. I mean, I forget what game it was, but he had like three touchdown passes, and before he even sat down, before he even answered a question, he was like, "Is that what you guys wanted to see? Like,
yeah,
quit telling me I can't play the position when I've been playing the position my whole life. I can throw the ball. I can make plays. I can make reads when when it's time for me to, or when the game plan allows me to." And
yeah.
you can see just some of the routes and some of the concepts and some of the plays that it's not indicative to his strengths. It's just not.
Yeah, not maximizing his skill set potentially, and you made a good point about the Eagles having this great offensive line though as well. Like, I noticed the other day that I didn't realize that Becton was playing guard for you guys. Is that something that's been going on all season? That you have
Yeah.
essentially like a
No,
left
yeah.
tackle playing interior O line? Like that's crazy.
I'm telling
He's a free
I'm
agent, I
telling
think,
you
after this
right.
year.
I'm telling you right now, Murph, if you went in there and got taught by Jeff Stoutland, you could be an all pro guard.
You know what? I have the weight for it. I just don't. I got to find a way to translate some of the fat into muscle, and I might be good to go. I could probably play like interior guard or something. I mean, I played in high
I
school.
I have no clue, and maybe he's just great at coaching offensive linemen. But the
Yeah,
fact that he hasn't been an offensive coordinator, I mean, he's the run game coordinator
yeah,
as well as the O line coach. But I mean, guys that have come in there rave about Jeff Stoutland and how good of a coach he is.
yeah,
Jordan Mailata, like all those guys, like Jordan Mailata didn't know what football was. He was playing rugby.
yeah.
And Jordan Mailata is now an all pro left tackle. Never played a
And
lick
a
of
great
football
singer
in his life.
too from the Christmas album. This guy's got a great falsetto as well. Potentially
Oh
has
yeah,
his
he's a
next
great
career lined
singer.
up too. Did they make that was last year when they had the
They made
offensive
another one.
lineman. Did they do another one this year? Is that an every year
They
thing
did
for the
another
Eagles O
one. Yeah.
line? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that. Like I
But
haven't really seen
like
that
you
type
said,
of team building.
Makai
Yeah.
Becton was a top 10 pick
Yeah.
and
Failed
was
another
a
failed
tackle.
Jets first round pick that they weren't able to
Jets
develop
threw,
because of
Jets threw him away,
yeah.
and Jeff Stoutland brings him in. He's obviously not going to play tackle over Mailata and Lane Johnson. So hey, I'm
Yeah.
going to teach you how to play guard. And Makai Becton has had a tremendous year. I think
God,
second team. I think he's an
yeah.
alternate for the Pro Bowl. He might
Yeah.
even made the Pro Bowl. I'm not sure, but you
Yeah.
know,
He's
I mean, the
ginormous.
offensive line is
He's
incredible.
seeing him. He dwarfs Lane Johnson. I was looking at some of the run plays that Saquon had, and I was like, man, this guy is. He makes
And
Lane
Lane
Johnson's
Johnson's a
a
big boy.
Pro Bowl. Yeah, he is. No, he makes him look tiny. Vikings fans were salivating. They're like, this guy's a free agent next year. He's a tackle turned interior O lineman, which that's our biggest weakness. We give up the most pressures up the middle of any team. We don't really have any big bruisers, and we haven't for a long time. And people are salivating at Becton, like, oh yeah, let's get him. Of course, the next play he gets, absolutely pile drive by Verse for a sack right up the middle. But that happens to anybody every once in a while. But no, just interesting to see that you guys can kind of plug in different pieces, replace a retired, Jason Kelsey, and still have this incredible offensive line. It's kind of similar to like what the I know you're not gonna like me saying this, but what the Cowboys had going on there before they had some retirements and some people move on, where it's just like,
Yeah, I
they
mean
made
that
Ezekiel Elliott look like one of the best running backs in the league, and really how much of it
well,
was just
even
that
before
line.
that, Emmett Smith is the running back he is, and the running
Hmm.
back that everybody lauds him to
Oh,
be.
he had
He
Larry
could have
Allen
led Hall
blocking
of Fame
for him,
offensive
and yeah, 100%. And it kind of makes me think, maybe investing in your guys in the trenches can kind of mask some of the shortcomings of other players. Like the Vikings. There wasn't that long ago. I mean, it doesn't feel like that long ago when we had Steve Hutchison and we had Matt
line.
Burke at center and we had Bryant McKinney at right tackle and Pro Bowlers across the way and they were blocking for Adrian Peterson too. I mean, that was the perfect storm of having you know uh, a great talent at running back and you guys have that same mix as well. It's not that dissimilar from that team. Great offensive line, great running back, and look at the type of holes that open up. That's a game-breaking play. 70-yard rushes don't happen all the time, but for the Eagles, it seems to be something that happens every couple weeks. You'll rip off a big one that changes the complexion of the entire game. Um, Yeah, it's I don't expect the Commanders. I didn't expect the Commanders to win any playoff games. I picked them to lose every single round that I predicted. So I'm going to continue with that prediction. I'm going to say that I think the Commanders still have a lot to prove. Still a really fun season because nobody there expected them to make this kind of run. So they're just, we've used this term, playing with house money. They've been doing that the entire playoffs. I feel like fans there probably feel like they've gotten their money's worth out of this team, and
Yeah, they're gonna be the team to give the Eagles a run for their money over the next few years. Dallas
yeah,
stinks. New York stinks. Those two organizations are
yeah, they got to
not
figure it
headed in
out.
the right direction. The Commanders are headed in the right direction when they got Daniel Snyder out of there. They've got a good coach. They've got a good young quarterback. So obviously they're gonna be the team to fight with the Eagles for the division over the next few years.
Yeah,
Because if they put some guys around Jaden Daniels, put a defense together, they're gonna be a team to look out for sure.
yeah,
Just not this
absolutely.
week.
Yeah, this week all Eagles. So we're predicting from what it sounds like, guys. Eagles Chiefs. We're getting a rematch. It's happening. I think both of us are kind of leaning in that direction, but we'll wait and see. There'll be some good football this weekend, hopefully. I think the Chiefs Bills will be a good game. I think Eagles Commanders could be a bit of a bloodbath, but I thought the Lions would beat the Commanders badly last week, and you never know. But let's move on. I wanted to talk a little bit about a lot of this stuff on Twitter today. The NFL's been tweeting out all the finalists for these different awards. Um, there's some awards too that are more meaningful than others, but I figured we start off with the Player of the Year, the Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year. So first off, Offensive Player of the Year. I think some of the finalists off the top of my head, Joe Burrow was up there. Wait, actually, you know what? I don't even think I've seen the graphic. No, he's Comeback Player of the Year. I wouldn't be surprised. I think he was also in the mix for Offensive Player of the Year. I think it was him. I think it was. I think Jared Goff was in there as well. Saquon Barkley, basically similar to the MVP candidate. I honestly don't know the difference between Offensive Player of the Year and MVP. I feel like it's a really similar
I think it's like it's
category.
a poor man's MVP. I think.
It really is. Like Defensive Player of the Year. I totally get it because it's so like
Yeah.
who's the last defense player to win MVP? I know Alan Page did it for the Vikings back, when games were in black and white. But yeah, it's just something that doesn't happen. So I totally get Defensive Player of the Year. This might be the most meaningless of the. It's almost like say best fantasy player. It's something that really doesn't really matter. But if you had to pick a best offensive player of the year, who would it be in your eyes?
Oh, it's definitely Saquon.
I'm not surprised.
Because he's a running back and he's not going to win MVP because it's either going to be Josh Allen or Lamar. But I don't think it's going to be unanimous. I don't think it's going to be
Yeah,
unanimous MVP. I think Saquon's going to get some votes. I think Burrow's going to get some votes.
yeah,
Because without Burrow, the Bengals would have been. I mean,
yeah.
that he was their entire second half of the year to get them even close to sniffing the playoffs.
After like an 0-4 start or like a 1-4
Yeah,
start or something
they
too.
were
Yeah,
they were dead in the water, and Burrow went off. I mean, you
yeah,
could say golf. Golf may get a couple of votes, but it's not going to be unanimous. I think
yeah,
Saquon will get more votes than people think because without Saquon, I
yeah,
mean, he ran for 2,000 yards, right?
yeah,
And he did it in 16 games, not
yeah,
17. He did it in 16. He's got the eighth most rushing yards in NFL history.
yeah.
Without that,
Without playing that last game too.
Kenneth Gainwell wasn't going to rush for 2,000 yards,
Yeah,
even with that offensive line. He's not rushing for 2,000 yards.
yeah,
So you could make a case for but it's a quarterback driven league. I think Lamar's going to win it. I think
yeah,
Lamar's going to get a third. I don't think it's going to be a pity. We'll talk about offensive player of the year. My bad.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But yeah, offensive player of the year without a doubt. I think Saquon gets it because if it wasn't for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, I think Saquon would be the MVP too. But
yeah.
he's definitely getting offensive player of the year.
I think honestly it's going to be one of those things where voters kind of have their person in mind for who's going to be the MVP. And for me, I think more it might be Josh Allen this year. I think the narrative of doing more with less or doing an equal amount with less is what people are kind of going with. And then they're already going to have it in the back of their mind. Whoever doesn't win MVP is going to get this one, take it home. Although I do think Burrow's numbers were insane. Like his efficiency and touchdown to interception ratio was crazy. He was throwing like I think it was like 11 touchdowns for one interception and throwing for insane yardage as well. I think he's a stud. There's a period there again. After his Super Bowl appearance, where I had him as a top three quarterback, and he kind of opened my eyes. I was like, this guy's a gunslinger. Like I would love to have this guy on my team. And then the injury concern came in. It's like, man, he's injured again. He's missing another season. It's like, is he made of glass? But I think he turned a lot of heads this year, and I think he's back 100%. And I think he's like, I don't think anybody wouldn't say he's a top 5 QB at the very least in the NFL. Like, he does have some good weapons. He's playing with his one of his college weapons too. So the chemistry there has just been building for years. He's in a really unique situation over there, and you know, because of how good he is, I was just shocked when at the end of the year, and I was like, man, the Bengals are only 9-8. Like, look at the season that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow just put up. Like, how big are the holes on the rest of that team?
Yeah,
That you
they were
know,
just in the Super Bowl a few years ago.
yeah, and then you get Hendrickson too, who's up for Defensive Player of the Year as well. So you get a premium edge rusher as well. I was like, what's the problem with that team? You know, that's keeping them from being a 12, 13, 14 win team. You know, maybe part of it's just playing in one of the toughest divisions in football too. The AFC North is always like full of teams that are all above 500 and all, you know, potential championship contenders at the beginning of the season. So, yeah, I'd say for this one, I'm thinking, uh, you know, whoever loses out on the MVP race, I'd say I think Lamar Jackson might get Offensive Player of the Year because, you know, insane rushing yard, almost 1,000 yards rushing. Quarterback rating was far and above anybody else in the league, and he still threw for yardage and he still threw for touchdowns, and he didn't throw a lot of picks. Like I think, you know, he put up one of the most insane statistical seasons that nobody seems to be really appreciating. How good he was, and I think the fact that he's doing it as a passer too is kind of important as well. Like he's one of the most efficient passers. He might be the best passer statistically in the NFL, and people still want to talk about him as being a glorified running back. You know, despite this, not
He's the NFL Shohei Ohtani.
yeah. I could see. I mean, he passed Mike Vick. How old is Lamar Jackson? What is he, like 27 or something?
27 or 28. Like
He's
he's still
got
got some.
he does, and he stayed healthy the entire time too. He's still and you know, Mike Vick obviously was like the iconic runner, and it was a different era of football too. And he was maybe a bit more of a hard nosed runner. He was super explosive and fun to watch, but I'd almost argue
Vic
that
was
Lamar
more
is a
Vic
more
was more
talented.
Vic was more straight line speed. Like he was
Yeah,
shifty, but he was more straight line speed, like just
yeah,
outrun everybody.
yeah,
Lamar is shifty. Lamar is
yeah.
like Barry Sanders
He
type
is. If you
shifty.
put him in like a drill where you know you put him in a box and they got to play
Yeah.
tag and avoid a bunch of people, like Lamar, I think his footwork is like even more impressive than Mike Vick in a small space, like just being able to get out and stay upright and his balance. Whereas, you know, but Mike Vick also played in the era where you could go out and just absolutely tee off on a quarterback who was running the ball. You know, there's a lot more rules in
Yeah.
place to protect him. You know, we saw what happened to like RG3 and other mobile quarterbacks, you know, before the rule changes were kind of implemented. So he does have that going for him, that he's not going to be getting absolutely suplexed out there on the field, you know, without there being heads rolling from the officials. But yeah, no, he had an incredible season. So I'd say for him, Lamar's my offensive player of the year. But Burrow is a strong second for me. I mean, Josh Allen too, but in my opinion, I think Josh Allen's getting MVP this year. I just have a feeling. Um, what about defensive player of the year? There was an Eagles player who I've never heard of in my life. Braun Vaughn.
Zach
Who the hell
Bond,
is that?
and I'm not.
Who the
This
hell
is
is this
not
guy?
Homer. This is not
Yeah,
being a homer. This guy played out of his mind. He's been a middle linebacker his entire career. We brought him in on a 1-year deal. Vic Fangio said, "You're not a middle linebacker. You're an outside. You're an off-ball outside linebacker. You
yeah,
can rush the passer every now and then, but you're a coverage guy. And he has the year Luke Kuechly won
yeah,
Defensive Player of the Year, and I know that's quite some years ago, and the league
yeah,
is different. Zach Bond has better numbers than that.
yeah.
So there is no doubt in my mind, and I know everybody's talking about uh, Patrick
Who else?
Surtain,
Yeah, yeah, for the
but
Broncos.
there's no doubt in my mind that Zach Bond should win Defensive Player of the Year. To switch
Yeah,
positions, that he's never played outside linebacker.
yeah,
Um, he was predominantly a pass rushing middle linebacker. I don't know why the Saints used him the way he did, but Vic Fangio said, "No, this is what you're going to do, and I'm going to play to your strengths." And that dude, he's been all over the field: tackles, interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries. I mean, he's just made play after play after play. And
yeah.
I don't see, obviously he's not a big name. Nobody knows who the hell Zach Bond is. We
Yeah.
knew who he was when we
I had
picked him
never
up.
heard
We're
of the
like,
guy.
okay, that's a pretty good signing. That's we need linebackers in Philly. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good signing. If you'd have told me he'd be up for Defensive Player of the Year when we signed him, I'd have told you were crazy. But
yeah,
watching him all year long, he has been insane, and
yeah,
I would love for him to win Defensive Player of the Year. Now that might bode bad because we only brought him in on a 1-year deal, so we got to
yeah,
sign him and bring him back. We have to. There's
yeah,
no question. I mean, he's gonna garner quite a bit of money, but
yeah.
I do think he should win it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it's there's one guy, I'm not going to prognosticate on who I think should be defense player of the year. I mean, it's tough. Like we haven't really had a shutdown cornerback. Like there was an era where there were shutdown cornerbacks. There was Darrell Revis, and you don't throw to him, or there was Champ Bailey, and you don't throw to him. It seems like that era is kind of over a little bit. With all the rules protecting offensive players now. Like I feel like anybody can be targeted, and you can scheme people open, or they're just going to switch the matchup. Like there's not really the whole thing where the best cornerback goes up and they're following the receiver. There's so much motion pre-snap and stuff. Like 90% of the time, you're going to be switching the matchup to where the best cornerback is not always guarding the best receiver. It's just not the same way it used to be. But one guy who I thought was going to be in this conversation from the beginning of the year was Andrew Van Ginkel. Again, another guy coming over, to the Vikings from Miami who just, absolutely was a game breaker and a guy who played outside linebacker, played a little bit of interior linebacker as well. Who was, I mean, he had 11 and a half sacks. So he could get after the quarterback. He could bull rush guys. He could be, we had a good pressure from Grenard and he'd be the second man in. But also was just like shut down the flat completely. Like he had a couple pick sixes. And he had a couple more near pick sixes against the Lions in week 18. He pawned that ball and he got it, and it would have tied the game at the time. Like he's just kind of a game breaker. So I'm not upset that he wasn't in the conversation, but for me, I was like, man, this guy is just what a find in this system with Flores. Like he's just a monster who does everything well in coverage or against the rush. I guess the league leader in sacks this year. I mean, T.J. Watt was up there, which I think he missed some time with injury this year. I think T.J. Watt, he seems to be up there every year. Like he's putting up insane numbers over the start of his career. Hendrickson put up 15 plus sacks this year. A guy that I'm not really familiar with. I don't really think of him as a premier edge rusher, but maybe because he never gets good cards in Madden. His cards are always like super soft on strength, and and this is, I will say, this is probably one of those awards that I haven't really cared about it that much since like the era of like Ray Lewis being in, when Ray Lewis was in there, I was like, oh yeah, this is like an exciting defensive player who quarterbacks a defense. Whereas now it really is kind of like, they got multiple guys with communication with the sidelines. It's not like back in the day where there's one player who's noticeably calling all the shots. It's changed a little bit. But yeah, this guy, I was just shocked. I saw the list and I didn't recognize this guy on the Eagles. I'd never heard of him before. You guys have had really good luck signing these kind of veterans coming over with the change of scenery and fitting in really nicely with your system over the years. Pretty fortunate thing. What about the offensive rookie of the year? Because this one, we've had a lot of rookie quarterbacks this year.
Oof.
Um,
I think it's hands down Jaden Daniels, but there's a
yeah,
lot of notable names that have had really good offensive, rookie campaigns. Bo Nix,
yeah.
um, uh,
I think Bo Nix might have had the most touchdowns of any quarterback. Not that that's the be all and end all. And led a team to the playoffs too. I mean, that's impressive in its own right. And he was drafted like way down in the first round. Like
yeah,
and Sean Payton. Vikings fans are kind of trolling the Broncos because Vikings fans hate Sean Payton for the Bounty Gate years and for murdering Brett Favre in the conference championship and all that. But he was saying, oh yeah, we got our guy in Bo Nix, and everyone's like, oh yeah, sure, you guys wanted JJ McCarthy, you wanted Penix, you wanted one of those other guys, and you had to settle for Bo Nix. But I mean, look what he went out and did in his first year. Like that's impressive. In a tough division too, having to play against the Chiefs as well. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like would you say it's
there's
runaway
been a
Jaden
lot of good
Daniels?
offensive rookies. Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers.
Yeah,
Um, but
Neighbors put a thousand
again,
yards up, I think.
it's a quarterback-driven league. They're gonna look at the quarterbacks, to
Yeah,
win these awards. So I think Jaden Daniels, I don't, I don't think he'd be unanimous, but I think
yeah,
he definitely wins it. But Bo Nix, I think the Broncos made the right pick with Bo Nix. Brock
yeah.
Bowers looks like he's gonna be incredible. Malik
Brock
Neighbors looks
Bowers
like
had a
he's
thousand yards too. Yeah, that's he look. I mean, people were, myself included. I was kind of scratching my head because it really felt like the Raiders needed to go quarterback. They needed to either trade up and get a quarterback. Like they were desperate for that position. But I mean, you could do worse than getting potentially one of the top five tight ends in the league, putting up 1,000 yards in a rookie season. I mean, look at Laporta over there with the Lions. Like the impact that he had on that offense. And this is a guy. It's like you're set now. You're set for the next 5 years at least on his rookie deal. He's going to be around and dominant. So maybe they're going to go QB this year. I would have to imagine the Raiders address the quarterback
Yeah,
position
they
somehow.
definitely got to go quarterback.
Maybe they go sign Sam Darnold to a 3-year deal and then also draft a quarterback. Who knows? Like I could see them going either way. Um, Yeah, but I think Jaden Daniels for sure is the consensus pick here. I don't know if it'll be unanimous, but definitely most people would have him on their ballot. Um, what about defensive player of the rookie of the year?
Oh,
So you had Cooper DeJean over there. Are you partial to him? Would you say he's worthy of it, or
I don't think him or I the stats don't speak
yeah,
to it. They're gonna look at stats. They're gonna look at interceptions. They're gonna look at tackles. They're gonna look at forced fumbles, fumble recoveries. They're gonna. It's a
yeah,
stat driven league.
yeah,
So I think Jared Verse will win Defensive Rookie of the Year just because of the year he's had with his stats.
yeah,
I mean, he had quite a few sacks. He had like he's definitely. I think he wins it. I love Quinyon Mitchell. I love Cooper DeJean, but obviously they didn't. They didn't. The Eagles' defense completely changed once he
yeah,
was inserted into playing slot corner over
yeah,
Avante Maddox. Thank God they did. We were all yelling and screaming for that to happen, and when it did, the Eagles defense completely changed. I think they're only like I think 126 yards less with him in the slot
yeah,
passing. So that's huge. And Quinyon Mitchell didn't have the stats because nobody, quite frankly, nobody threw at him. No,
yeah,
he gave up one touchdown all year.
yeah,
So obviously Slay's on his way out, so we're gonna have, I don't know what we're gonna do outside once Slay walks because he's getting older, and I don't think he's gonna be due some money, so I think he walks. Um, and we've got a young DB room too. We still have Eli Ricks and Keely Ringo behind Quinyon
yeah,
and Cooper DeJean, and then we have the decision to make on Isaiah Rogers too, who has helped. But with how good the defense is in Philly, they're not gonna. I mean, I know they're on the finalist list, but I think it's Jared versus to
yeah.
lose. I think
Yeah,
he wins it.
he's an explosive player. Like, I want to look back at the draft order because, the Vikings traded back up in the draft to get Dallas Turner, who barely played any snaps this year. Like, he was a blue chip prospect. It was kind of one of those years where it's like everyone was drafting QBs and no defensive players got picked for until like halfway through the first round. I can't remember if Verse was picked before or after Dallas Turner. I'd have to I should have done this research before the podcast, but um like if we did pass on Verse to get Dallas Turner, it's kind of like, man, we might have missed out on potentially the best edge rushing prospect out of this draft class. He, like I mentioned that one play against Becton, like just absolutely steamrolled him, pancaking somebody who's probably got about 100 pounds on him. He had a fumble six. I'm pretty sure he recovered a fumble for a touchdown against the Vikings in the wild card round. Just a difference maker, like an absolute game breaker. So I've been super impressed by what I've seen from him. I think he made the Pro Bowl this year as well as a rookie, which is like a fairly rare thing, for somebody playing a premium position as a rookie. Um,
Dallas
so
Dallas
Dallas
Turner
Turner.
was selected 17th. Verse was selected 19th.
So we could have had him on the Vikings, is what you're telling me. I mean, hey, I think it's more of you look at our guys. Van Ginkel was one of our outside linebackers. He had an amazing year. Grenard was our other outside linebacker. He had I think 11 sacks this year and had one of the top five in creating QB pressures all year as well. So like, I think it's more that he stepped in, and a lot of our free agent acquisitions played so well in Flores' system that there just wasn't reps for him.
Yeah, I mean, who's to
Um,
say Dallas Turner doesn't turn out to be like it's just not
yeah,
wasn't his time. There were guys ahead of
I
him
mean,
that
look at like
he couldn't get in front of.
Everson Griffin when he was on the Vikings too. He played behind oh my god, Jared Allen for many years, like where he was like the backup, and then Jared Allen moved on, went to the Bears or whatever, and Everson Griffin was a Pro Bowler as soon as he became a starter. But I think he was in his mid 20s by then. He wasn't a young prospect anymore. So you just think on a rookie contract, you got him for 5 years as a first round pick. It's like you hate to see a year where they're barely contributing, but at the same time, if he comes out of nowhere next year and is a top tier talent. You got him for 4 years and he knows the system. It could be good. I mean, I saw incredible potential in him. I've seen some real athleticism in him. He had a couple picks and dropping back in coverage, which is not really his thing. But I did see this one play where he almost it was almost like an anime character. He slid down on one leg to get out. Like he literally did like a slide to get underneath the left tackle and popped back up and got this explosive sack. And I'm like, man, the physical tools are all there, but Verse is like more of the finished product right now, and he fit in perfectly to what they needed right now, and kind of became a leader on that defense from early on. So I think it's his award to win. I don't really see anybody taking that away from him. And again, it's easy to track stats with edge rushers more so than it is with defensive backs and cornerbacks. I think it's a lot easier to give that award to an edge rusher than it is to a cornerback who maybe isn't targeted and doesn't show up on the stat sheet so much. Um,
Yeah.
Although Terry Arnold too, like I mean the Lions had Terry Arnold come in and do a good job with that injury riddled cornerback room as well. He was able to play some man coverage against Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson as well. Like nobody really played man coverage against Justin Jefferson, but I'm pretty sure in the wildcard weekend game and in week 18, sorry, not in the wildcard weekend, in week 18 he was in man coverage against Justin Jefferson and he didn't have a good game. So there's definitely talented starters to be found out there amongst the rookie crop. This next one, comeback player of the year. So for me, it's a two-man race. Joe Burrow coming back from injury, having one of the best offensive seasons. I saw Damar Hamlin on there again. Did he not come back last year? Like how many times is he gonna get comeback player of the year? He was in the top 5 again. He literally came back last year. Like I don't get it. I don't know. I get it. He died. He came back, but
I don't think he's nominated. I don't think he's nominated. But give me Jameis Winston, man.
I love Jameis Winston, man.
Give me Jameis Winston. Give me a Jameis Winston comeback player of the year speech.
Oh my God, he's a treasure, man. I didn't realize how goofy he was when he came in the league, but he's given so many viral moments. And what was the one where he was talking about praying? The press conference this year where he's talking about when he throws it up there and he's just praying. He's hilarious, man. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He's gonna walk away from this game. Not a Hall of Famer, maybe sneaks in a Pro Bowl appearance at some point, but like he'll put up 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, and he'll be fine. He lives his life, man. He's not.
He just did a commercial for crab legs or something.
Oh God, I could see it. No, he's incredible, man. He's gonna walk away from this game a very rich man, and I would love to see him in a broadcast booth or like doing something college game day. He's just like an amazing personality. No, he's won me over big time. He's been around for a long time. He played with Drew Brees, like for crying out loud.
I think it's definitely Joe Burrow's award, but I would love. Yeah. I don't know who's.
I mean, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's my other guy, and not coming back from injury, but coming back from literally being one of the worst quarterbacks in the league to being a 14-win quarterback. He's on that list too. I feel like this always goes towards somebody coming back off an injury. It was Alex Smith the one year. Like when Alex Smith came back off that catastrophic like broken leg that he almost died from or whatever, like because of infection, all that stuff. Like that was cool. He wasn't good. He came back. He wasn't good though. Like he wasn't a top 10 or top 15 quarterback the year he came back. For me, I kind of like the redemption arc more of a guy like a Geno Smith. When Geno Smith kicked around the league forever and was nothing. He got some starts early on in his time with the Jets, and then he disappeared for like 5-6 years, and then all of a sudden plays for the Seahawks and has a really good year. Like that's the type of player that I like to root for comeback player of the year. Somebody who everybody's written off, and then they finally find something that just clicks later on in their career that kind of gets them to where they actually are an elite talent or somebody who deserves to be in the league. But that's just me. I feel like injury is something you can't control, but like turning on that extra switch or figuring that one thing out that your game is missing, that's kind of what interests me. So I'm throwing it in there for Sam Darnold. He didn't win anything meaningful, so I'm giving him my vote this year. Burrow's gonna win some awards in his career, I think. This is probably the one shot that Darnold has at actually winning something, so I'm gonna give it to him now.
I can't believe they have Damar Hamlin.
I was shocked. He was the 5th candidate on the list that I saw on the NFL thing. I was like, dude, he literally was back last year. Like I'm pretty sure he's the starting safety for their defense.
It's Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Gonzalez, Damar Hamlin. It's between Burrow and.
I mean, wasn't
Darnold.
Christian Gonzalez like only a second-year player too? Like he was a rookie last year, right? So like, how do we say it's a comeback? It's like literally essentially his rookie season. Is that a comeback?
He was hurt. He did. I think
he was.
But
yeah, he did. But it's like he didn't even really get established in the first place to come back. It's almost like it's like Blake Griffin. When he got injured before the season started in his rookie year. It's like. His second year in the league was his rookie year. We didn't get to see Blake Griffin the first time up. Nobody's saying, "Oh yeah, he's back." It's like, no, he's arrived now finally. So Christian Watson's a weird pick for me.
I wouldn't be surprised if Sam Darnold won it, but I think it'll be Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, Burrow's he's an exciting player, man. He's
Burrow's coming back from injury. Sam Darnold's coming back from being in Carolina.
Exactly. I think did he end he ended the year with the Niners. He ended the year with the Niners, I'm pretty sure. No, he had a weird
he did.
A weird journey, man. The more I look into it, the more I'm like, man, what did the Jets do to quarterbacks? Like what the hell do they do to quarterbacks over there?
Yeah,
I
before
think.
you know it, Zach Wilson's going to be somewhere throwing
Oh
dimes
yeah,
like
we might be looking at him as a bridge option if McCarthy's not ready to go. Get Zach Wilson in here and see what we can do with him. But yeah, it seems like that franchise really just at that position is cursed. I mean, I don't think they've had a good QB since Joe Namath, and that was well before I was watching football games or alive even. So yeah, comeback player of the year, not the most meaningful award, but I'm sure it's an award like that. I see. I don't also feel like Joe Burrow would appreciate that award. I feel like Joe
yeah.
Burrow knows that he's so elite that it's like, yeah, give me an MVP, maybe offensive player of the year. I don't think he cares about comeback player of the year at all. I think he cares about winning a Super Bowl. Whereas somebody like Sam Darnold, journeyman, I could see that meaning a lot to him. Alex Smith coming back off of something that was life threatening, or DeMar Hamlin, I could see that meaning a lot to them. But Joe Burrow, I feel like this is something that's not even gonna get on the mantelpiece. It's
Yeah.
he won a national championship. He's a decorated athlete already. So I'd rather see it to go to somebody who actually this might be that one thing that they can tell their grandkids about. They won some hardware and the story behind it. But not the most meaningful award. The last thing I wanted to talk about, the last award here, it's a team game, but there are certain people that have more of an impact than others and really can kind of change the face of franchises. I want to talk about the coach of the year, and we've already kind of talked about it a little bit, like breaking down some of the playoff matchups. I will say before I let you give your take on this, I did see that there was some. I don't know if it was the American Sports Writers, one of these groups of journalists named Kevin O'Connell their coach of the year this year with the Vikings, and he had a great year, 14 wins, no playoff wins. Got a bridge quarterback to have a chance to be playing for the number one seed in Week 18, and in any other year, I'd say Kevin O'Connell's completely deserving of it. Given what he had to work with and all the changing personnel. And we just re-signed him as well. So we re-signed Kevin O'Connell. I don't know what the term is yet. I don't think they've released it, but there have been a ton of press releases and stuff. He's here for a long time to come. There was like talk of him getting traded to another franchise, like kind of like a John Gruden situation, which I thought was ridiculous. But we've locked him up. He's here to stay. I'm happy with him. But I still think this award this year, like I think there's really only one choice. I think Dan Campbell, like you said, how many people were on the IR? 22. I don't see any other quarterback that's had to, you know, overcome that kind of adversity. Who's your pick for coach of the year and why?
I think it is Kevin O'Connell. I think
Really?
I think
Wow.
doing what he did with Sam Darnold, um, it's a regular season award.
Yeah, that's true.
There was Detroit. Detroit didn't get hurt until they didn't get hurt till the latter part of the year.
Yeah.
So although and I don't think Dan Campbell has an ounce of football knowledge in that big ass blockhead of his.
You
I
you
think
think it's
he's
the
just
coordinators carrying him?
I think he's just a motivator of men. He's a leader of men. He's a former hard nosed player, just an old school type of dude. So players
Yeah.
are going to play for him because of the attitude he has and just the attitude he brings towards players. He cares. He cares about
Yeah.
the game. Not saying that other coaches don't or other coordinators
Yeah.
don't, but what Kevin O'Connell did with Sam Darnold and leading the Vikings to 14 wins, 13 or however many wins, 14
Yeah.
and 2.
14 wins, yeah.
I think Kevin O'Connell definitely deserves Coach of the Year. Definitely.
I could see it. He's there've been some articles out. He's the prototypical modern NFL quarterback. You talk about the Eagles being old school, hard nosed, the football that we grew up watching. Kevin O'Connell's the type of guy who I'm sure he'll get after his players if he needs to, but he seems to be a player coach and that his players really like him. He doesn't embarrass his players. He doesn't, uh, you know, speak poorly of players if they're on their way out or if they're getting cut. He seems to be a type of guy who's always like kind of nurturing these relationships. I saw him talking to, he was mic'd up for one of the games and he was talking to the young quarterback on the Colts, Richardson, who had just been benched, a highly touted draft pick and then kind of fallen out of favor with the Colts. And he was talking to him, at the end of the game, Vikings won, and he's like, you're a talented player. Your moment's gonna come. Keep your head down. Do the work. It's I feel like he's the type of guy that around the league, players are going to want to come play for him because they know how he treats his players. And those little conversations, when you're trying to recruit guys to come to your team years down the road, they're going to remember the type of interactions you had. Whereas if you're out there, talking in the media and Sirianniing the other team's fans, mouthing off and stuff, that's something that maybe it might rub some people the wrong way. So, although Sirianni, I think, has like a career like over 700 win percentage. Like, I mean, kind of a crazy for
Yeah,
the amount of
honestly,
flack that he gets.
As long as
He's
they're
had a crazy
winning,
success rate.
it's okay for Sirianni to be Sirianni. But you
Yeah,
look at last year when they went on that terrible losing streak to end the year.
yeah,
It didn't look like anybody could stand him, but they're winning this
yeah.
year, and now all the players are like, "Oh, we love you, coach. Do
Oh
you, be
yeah,
you."
for
Like
sure.
that type of shit runs a course. I think Sirianni is one of those guys who doesn't have a lick of football knowledge in his head,
Yeah, yeah,
but he can motivate people just because of his attitude and how he presents himself as a, you know, talk shit,
yeah,
boisterous, out loud, cares. He does care.
yeah,
He's going to be an emotional guy, and that's fine. Like that, we love that type of stuff as long as you're winning.
yeah,
But
for
once
sure.
you start making questionable decisions and losing us points and keeping points on the field, we want your head.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
a catch-22 with how Sirianni is. But same with Dan Campbell. When they were questioning his decisions to go for it on fourth or not, or leaving points on the field and stuff like that. Like when you're doing stuff like that and that's all you're in charge of, is whether it's
yeah,
saying, "Oh yeah, go ahead, go for it. You call the
yeah,
play, but go ahead, go for it," or
yeah,
no, take three or whatever. When those are your only decisions,
yeah,
obviously you're not
yeah.
gonna take as much heat if you're winning.
I do get the sense that Kevin O'Connell, he does call the offense. Like we have an
Yeah,
offensive coordinator, but like Kevin O'Connell's out there. If it's fourth and goal and we're deciding to go for it, it's like it's him making that call. He's drawing up the play. I always wonder too in these situations when you have these guys who are real. He came from the McVay tree, and McVay's a super smart dude. Like honestly, like serial killer, like psychopath smart. Like with his memory and his knowledge of it's like this guy probably remembers every play that he's called for the last 15 years of his career. Smart X's and O's guy. I always
I
wonder
would love.
what is the role of the offense coordinator on a team like that? I mean, I guess just running drills,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
game day
just
you're just
yeah.
standing around holding a clipboard
You're
probably.
basically an advisor to the
Yeah,
offense or the passing
essentially,
game. Like
yeah,
I would love for somebody to come in and get a hold of Jalen Hurts with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley and really see what that offense like.
yeah,
There's no reason that offense should ever get stopped. It's just
yeah.
not.
Yeah. No, and we've seen. I mean, it's the same thing we were talking about. Mahomes having a down year offensively. I mean, I guess part of that too is when your defense is that good and you really don't need to put up the points. We've seen Mahomes put up like 6 touchdowns in a game before. We've seen him air it out for 500 yards. But like when you're controlling the clock and you're in position to win, there's really no need to go to those lengths. I maybe what it takes to kind of maybe what it'll take for Jalen Hurts to get freed up again too is having some injuries on defense or having some key free agents leave and having to step up and make those plays that'll allow the offense coordinator to free him up a little bit and you'll see some of what you saw in 2022 again. But obviously playing winning football is probably more where your mindset's at, and I'm sure most Philly fans would agree with it. Winning football over flashy football. But it is fun to have a flashy win every once in a while and just see what the guys can do because Twitter trolls don't get that. Stats mean everything to the Twitter trolls out there and the casual viewers. But yeah, that honestly, that's all the rewards I think that they're out there. I don't know if there's any other ones, but those are the ones that I figured were worth. Yeah.
Walter Payton, Man of the Year, needs to go to
Yes.
Brandon.
Brandon Graham is he retired after this year? Is this his last chance to get it? Has he ever gotten it
He
before?
hasn't decided. He hasn't decided. I think he
Yeah.
gives. I don't think he's going to go out like that. I think
You
he's the
you
way he was
can
playing.
yeah.
The way he was playing, I think he gives it one more year.
Yeah. And I think you could only be nominated for the Walter Payton Man of the Year 3 times. I heard one commentator on one of the Sunday night games I was watching. I can't remember who it was, but he was saying that he was nominated 3 times in his career, but it happened to be against like people with these incredible stories. He's like, I got knocked out 3 times by 3 deserving candidates, but it is an honor. There's a lot of players who do amazing stuff. Like, I remember Kyle Rudolph did a lot of stuff for children's hospitals when he was out in Minnesota, and I remember Chad Greenway as well doing stuff like when he was out on the Vikings. I think C.J. Ham was our nominee. Who's been around the team forever. It's like honestly, like why do we even carry a fullback in today's NFL? I don't know why he's on the team, but people seem to love him. But yeah, it's typically you got to look at. I mean, next year we can almost guarantee it's going to go to somebody on the Rams because it basically look at the latest natural disaster and where the need is, right? Like J.J. Watt, I think, has won it before in the past too for the stuff that he's done for hurricane relief and whatnot. So it's kind of one of those awards that is dictated by the circumstance of which community is the most in need and who's stepping up to make things happen. So, but definitely something that's cool, and you get to wear the badge or the patch, I think, for the rest of your career if you've won it before,
Yep.
which is a cool thing. I think Drew Brees is one of the guys that I can think of who always had it on when he was with the
Yep.
Saints. Kind of a cool
Just a
thing.
little.
Yeah, exactly. So There you go. Walter Payton, Man of the Year, going to Brandon Graham this year, guys. You heard it here first. Is that even something that people are allowed to bet on? It seems weird betting on a morality type of thing. I'm sure you can bet on it. Um, I don't know what the
You
payouts would
can
be.
bet on anything these days.
Yeah, absolutely you can.
Code
Yeah, the
Murphy
first.
D.
Yeah, I will say the brackets, the betting on the first song that somebody's going to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show. I didn't expect during Rihanna's halftime show when I think that was when was Rihanna when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl? Was that Eagles Chiefs when Rihanna did the
Mm,
halftime show?
yeah, yeah.
I think it was because that was right when my daughter was born, and we came home. She was born on February 10th, and the Super Bowl was maybe 3 days later. We just got home from the hospital in time to watch that Super Bowl game, so I have fond memories of that one, even though the Vikings were nowhere near it. Um, but in the pool that we did, they had all the first songs that she might perform, and I think it was "Bitch Better Have My Money" or whatever. That was not even one of the 15 choices that they gave on there, and that's the one that ended up winning out. And I was like, really, the one with cussing in the title is the one that she did first? That's a that's an honestly, it's almost like somebody had an inside bet placed from her camp over there. But yeah, it's exciting this time of year. 4 teams left. We got a lot of good football to look forward to this weekend. I'm sure you're frothing at the mouth, ready to watch the Eagles go back to the Super Bowl again. It's been a pretty. I mean, the Chiefs have been there many times in the last few years, but I'd say the other team that's been up there just as much representing the NFC as the Eagles. They've been all up and around the Super Bowl for the last 5-10 years. They've been in the conversation every single year. So hopefully you enjoy the football this weekend, Kev, and appreciate you coming through and breaking it down again.
Yeah, I'm headed over to my girlfriend's house, and with baby Kep. I'm not supposed to have baby Kep this weekend, but I asked his mom because his stepdad is a Washington fan because he's a
That's
Washington fan with everything.
unacceptable. Yeah.
And I was talking to baby Kep one night, and I heard his stepdad in the background talk about, yeah, I'm gonna have you wearing a Commanders jersey on Sunday. I was like fuck you are.
Hey,
And I was like, can I have him Sunday for the game, please?
nice. Hey, you got to protect them at all costs, man. That's that.
I said
Yeah,
to him, I said to him the other day, I was like, buddy, it's cool. Like, it's just sports mean so much to me. Philadelphia sports means so much to me and my
yeah,
family. It's part of who I am. It's part of my family. It's part of my birthright. It's in my blood. So both my sons, my oldest son was a year old when we moved south, and baby
yeah,
Kep was born in Raleigh, North Carolina. So he has no
yeah,
ties to Philadelphia other than me. But
yeah.
he's Philadelphia everything. And I said to him the other day, I was like, buddy, if Joe wanted you to wear Washington stuff, would you? He looked at me. He was like, no. All right, that's my
Hey,
boy.
you know what? That's good stuff, Cap. I appreciate you keeping the bloodline strong here and keeping Philly sports ingrained, even if there's not that geographical tie for him. I mean, he's been to Philly now. He had that experience that we talked about on the podcast last week
Uh,
of really getting to see what it's all about. The tailgate, the pageantry of an Eagles home playoff game. Good to see you keeping him true to his roots.
but
Um,
we're
you
gonna
know,
we're gonna see if me and my girlfriend we've been dating, we've been official for a little over a month, I think.
yeah.
So, and this is
Congrats.
the first time she's actually going to watch the game with me. So
So
we'll see if
that's
I'm
this
we'll
is a
see if I'm
precarious
single.
situation.
We'll see if I'm single Sunday night.
Well, you didn't get arrested in Philly, and if you can make it through that, I'm sure you'll be able to make it through 3 hours on the couch. Just make sure you throw down in the kitchen and get you some of your signature
Oh
playoff
yeah,
dishes
yeah, yeah.
ready,
I'll be
and I
cooking.
think that'll make things okay. But Cat man, always a pleasure. Appreciate you coming through, man. And we have a 2 week layover after this podcast where we can kind of see, maybe try to get a panel together for this one. I know Cove has been in the process of moving and whatnot, so maybe we try and get a full 4-man panel or something. We have 2 weeks to plan it, so I'll keep you posted on that. But man, always a pleasure doing this with you, and appreciate you spewing your Philadelphia homer takes as well as your football knowledge.